Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Hot Cakes, the segment on purposeless rabbit holes where we discuss the newest, hottest games around while I give my initial impression. Wait, welcome everybody to Hot Takes, the poorly named segment. Ah, shit, wasn't it called Spicy Takes last time? You know what? Fuck it, Hot Cakes it is. And I promise, this is definitely the last time I'll be changing the title of this show. I'm not lying to you, I swear. Today on Tasty Takes, we'll be discussing two of August's most talked about titles, Remnant from the Ashes and Control. Now, normally this show is a spoiler-filled affair, but I'm gonna keep that to a minimum this time around, because both of these titles are something you should probably experience for yourself, especially the latter. Without further ado, let's jump into Gunfire's newest, legally distinct from software joint, Remnant from the Ashes. I'm gonna say Remnant is easily the most frustrating game of 2019 for me so far. Shit, probably the most frustrating game I've played in the last 2 or 3 years. Not because of the difficulty, but because there's so much good in this game, paired alongside so much bad. The gunplay is responsive and viscerally satisfying, the story and lore of the worlds is pretty interesting, all things considered, the enemies have awesome designs when it comes to their visuals, and there are some fun characters, like Wud, a monster man from another realm who speaks English with a Russian accent.
How can I serve you today?
What is happening with this guy? So yeah, there's some good shit in Remnant, but, and that's a big ass but, to engage with said good shit, you also have to put up with the often generic feeling randomly generated environments, the shitty repetitive combat behaviors of enemies, the generally underwhelming loot system that gates you out of content for a whole playthrough based on RNG, the unreadable maps with no zoom function or legend, the barrage of glitches and bugs, like that one time the game just didn't read my inputs for a QTE and I died because of it, the confusingly obtuse checkpoint system, and finally, the putrid boss design. I've fought 8 bosses in my 12 hours with Remnant, and every single one of them has been difficult not because of the dynamic or interesting attack patterns of the bosses themselves, but because of the waves and waves of bog-standard mobs that they just spam throughout the fights. Who the fuck wants to play a game where every single boss is the Royal Rat Authority? Seriously, raise your fucking hand if that sounds like a good idea to you. No hands getting raised.
I thought it was good.
Oh, shut the fuck up! This isn't creatively constructed difficulty. This is lazy as fuck difficulty that revolves around enemies you've encountered 1,000 times, running up behind you completely out of your field of view, and hardcore gangbanging you to death. I was hoping this would taper off as the game progressed, but nope. This is a completely intentional design decision, because I'm pretty sure I'm like 3/4 of the way through the game, and it has not relented. At this point, I'm seriously considering putting this game down, and not picking it up again, because the combat, the core of the experience, relies on nothing but spamming your ass with generic monsters from every angle that either pop off shots from a distance, randomly explode, or just run up on you and smack the shit out of you with one move, like some Fallout 4 ghouls. Now, this game is clearly influenced by Dark Souls, just like the studio's last horribly disappointing game, but it seems like the team continues to entirely misinterpret what makes the combat in Dark Souls great. It's the enemy design, that's the key. Nearly every enemy in FromSoft's games is an elaborately designed puzzle that you have to decipher through learning its tricks and tells. But dealing with enemies in Remnant comes down to killing as many as you can, as quickly as you can, before 50 more spawn out of the walls to bum rush you into oblivion. This shit is Dark Souls for dummies. And look, the Souls series is something special that springs from the mind of one man in tandem with one team, Hidetaka Miyazaki and From Software, and trying to emulate the success of a very specific vision like that is just a recipe for failure. There's a reason that nearly every game that's had the moniker of Souls-like slapped on it has been a big old pile of shit. This is like early 2000s film, when every burgeoning young director was like, I gotta make my own Tarantino movie. Sure, sometimes you get a Boondock Saints or a Neo, but most of the time you get 2 hours of a bunch of college students sitting in their apartment and talking about postmodernism. Please cut my fucking ears off before I have to listen to that shit. Remnant FromSoft the Ashes isn't 8 heads in a duffel bag, it's not the item, but a lot of its failings stem from its lack of originality. It's over-enthusiasm to be the next Souls-like, and God, it didn't work last time, so why the fuck would it now? We've seen so many of these knockoffs this generation that it's not even funny anymore. At this point, we've had Dark Souls but with samurai, Dark Souls but with robot arms, Dark Souls but with bad, Dark Souls but ruining a beloved series, and this week, we're finally getting our hands on Dark Souls with guns. Remnant is missing something, some truly unique feature or mechanic that can genuinely set it apart from the series it's imitating. I think Gunfire really needs to look into expanding its palette of inspirations moving forward. Hell, look at Neo 2. That new monster transformation mechanic looks like it's really gonna change up the gameplay and establish Neo as something more its own. Remnant needs a mechanic or 2 or 3 like that, something to vary up the endless point and shoot. Man, if Gunfire ends up doing Darksiders 4, I really hope they don't turn into the... Oh my god. Oh my god. Remnant is just a testing ground for Strife's gameplay in Darksiders 4. Oh Jesus, we're giving them exactly what they want! So, as you can tell, I'm having a lot of trouble enjoying this game, but for some reason, I am still playing it. The core gunplay is admittedly pretty satisfying. It's got a nice pace, and all the weapons just feel good to wield. Plus, the environments are gorgeous. Sure, they really start to blend together due to the randomly generated nature of the levels, but the art design is wonderful across the board here. On top of the genuinely enjoyable core gameplay and interesting environments, the story here isn't bad either. It's not groundbreaking or anything, but I do feel the urge to find out what's going on and piece everything together. This tale is held together by Firelinks at Ward 13, a comforting hub world that you're consistently teleporting back to upgrade your gear and buy supplies. When you're back at Ward 13, you can engage with riveting characters like boy, man, woman, crouching woman, singular black man named Reggie. Actually, he's like the only character I give a shit about. But hey, at least we got wood. I see a whole lot of potential in Remnant as a series, and I really do appreciate the honest price point of $40. I've certainly gotten my money's worth so far. If this game gets a sequel at some point, which is seeming surprisingly likely due to the unexpected splash it seems to be making, I really hope Gunfire can stick the landing and craft something more original and less annoying. Remnant gets a 5 out of 10 from me, but it's like a strong 5 out of 10. Maybe play it?
Oh, that was terrible.
By the way, pro tip, don't put a line in your game that mentions how terrible what you just experienced was, and especially don't have that line play more than any other piece of dialogue.
Oh, that was terrible. Oh, that was terrible. Oh, that was terrible. Oh, that was terrible. Oh, that was terrible.
Really starting to agree with you, male voice number 5. Next up on today's docket, we have Remedy's Control, a game I've been looking forward to for quite a while. There just aren't enough telekinesis games out there. The last really good ones I can remember are Second Sight and Psyops, which were both released roughly 70 years ago. Remedy as a company is best known for their tall tales, games with memorable stories like Alan Wake, Max Payne, and just those two. I knew the story here was at least gonna be interesting, but I haven't gotten hands-on with a Remedy game in like a decade, so what really surprises me here is how buttery smooth the movement and combat is. This is AAA quality shit right here. The bedrock of the gameplay is based around these really brief 30-second to a minute-long combat loops, and I just cannot tear myself away from that shit. No combat sequence outside of, you know, the really important set-piece moments has given me too much or too little, so I haven't even gotten close to growing tired of the core combat yet. I could see it getting slightly stale by the end, but at the moment, about 8 hours in, I'm loving it. This game easily could have been a walkathon, a la Gone Home or Everybody's Gone to the Rapture, and I think I'd probably still really enjoy it just for the compelling and immersive atmosphere. I can't remember the last time I spent this much time voluntarily walking through a game's world, but you pack some dope combat on top of that shit and shit is sizzling. Sizzling, I say! Sizzling when it works. I'm surprised the pre-order bonus for this game wasn't a bottle of fucking ibuprofen, because Jesus Christ! Despite the fact that I'm really enjoying this game, it's also, easily, the closest I've ever come in my life to having a fucking seizure. I feel like I'm watching the Speed Racer movie again. If you have epilepsy, do not buy this game, because that shit is a death sentence. Half the time, the lighting in this game is some of the best I've ever seen in the medium, and the other half of the time, I feel like I'm Zim looking into the heart of the sun. Combine that with frame dips that feel deeper than the fucking Marianas Trench, and you have yourself a migraine that's gonna last your ass all night. I'm really trying to love this game because the world is beautifully designed and the combat is fucking awesome when it's not making my eyes ache. But man, this game needs to be patched to hell and back. The unstable frame rate, the occasionally delayed input responses during the heat of battle, the horrendous texture pop-in, issues like these have genuinely been putting a huge damper on my experience. The last time I remember feeling this conflicted on a game when it comes to its excellent core gameplay being straight up ruined by technical issues is 2017's Prey, another game that launched with unacceptable performance hitches that actively ruined my first playthrough of the game. First impressions are important, and Control is making a really bad first impression. If you want to buy this game but haven't yet, wait. Wait until Remedy has released the patches that they've been talking about, because you're gonna have a bad time if you don't. Let's get back to talking about what makes this game great, though, because disregarding Control's hopefully temporary technical mishaps, I think it might be my favorite game of the year so far. The world that this game takes place in is just excelente. Reading isn't really my style. Seeing words, or whatever you call these weird symbols in my games, tends to offend my delicate sensibilities. I'm the kind of guy who prefers to break shit and watch it do whatever the fuck it's doing here. But even with my caveman sensibilities when it comes to reading material, I have combed through every fucking piece of paper this game has balled up and thrown at me. I've been lapping all that shit up. And it's not just 100% paragraphs on paragraphs either. They even made a puppet show for my dumb ass. How could you resist a horror-themed action game with its own in-universe "Don't hug me, I'm scared"? How? Answer me that shit.
Why don't you tell Uncle Mr. Bones what's wrong?
Alright, so this game's story begins with you taking control of newly appointed director of the FBC, Jesse Faden, who is oddly the most boring character in the game so far. She's no wood, that's for sure. Nah, as a protagonist, Jesse Faden is pretty cool. She's actually really relatable for a character who spends the entire game tossing shit around with her brain box. So far, the cast of supporting characters is wonderful too, well drawn and well acted, and this is probably a pointless thing to mention, but I like how realistically average everybody's face is. Except for Emily Pope. She's perfect. The building, in big-ass quotations, that this story takes place in is called the Oldest House, which immediately just take this award for the best named location in video game history. And the level design of the Oldest House somehow manages to match up to the awesomeness of its name, which is a feat in and of itself. I didn't realize going into this game that I would be getting some Metroidvania shit, but I am so glad that I got what I did. Half the joy of this game is just wandering through this brutalist bureau. Every single room is a visual feast when it's not tripping the fuck over itself. So yeah, I know this wasn't orderly, but these are some of my general thoughts on Control so far. Basically, everything is great, except for the performance of the game itself. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna get back to barreling through this thing, because I need some fucking answers. Update. I just beat the game. And... What? What?